here 70 years ago.
Is this the place? Well, your lantern is telling us it is.
Yeah, I think we should call it Pilgrim Hills.
When should we have the first campers come in?
How about in
2 months?
2 months? Yeah, 2 months.
2 months.
The first day of camp.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to Pilgrim Hills, and where we will have a fun time. We will learn about God, and we promise this camp will stay for many, many years to come.
Like 8.
Or probably 70.
Probably 8.
Here's our flag.
And here's our camp into the ground.
That hit my flag. Camp Pilgrim Hills is officially open!
I think this place is so sacred because many people have come to know Christ here. They've shared in relationships with other people here that are some of their best friends. And I just think that this place in general, as a sacred space, just allows us to be ourselves. So just seeing all those life changes with not only myself, but my best friends, and also, you know, just kids in general.
This is somewhere that I know every trail, I know every tree, I know every flower. I really do. And for me, it just feels like home. It feels somewhere that I know that I can breathe better here. I can breathe more deeply here, and I can connect on a different level than I can other places with people.
Personally, to me, I've seen the most growth in campers here. I've gotten to see campers that I never thought not only accept the change, but become true lovers of this site. As long as we have camp and as long as these people are still open in their hearts and in their minds to new things, that we can do whatever we put our minds to.
I think back to the very first time that I came to this camp. My first recollection was turning off of Township Road 20 and heading up through the pines and seeing those tall pines that were lining the one side, and it's the long drive all the way down. It was kind of like a tunnel, you know, a train coming through a tunnel. What was on the other side? I had no idea.
Just pulling in, passing the sign. I mean, I think all campers, when it's your first experience, is a little nerve-wracking, being dropped off by your parents, not necessarily knowing who you're going to meet that week. It was a time of excitement for me as well, because I always look forward to those opportunities.
Honestly, I was terrified. It was the first time I'd ever driven from Temple Hills to Pilgrim Hills, and like GPSs weren't what they were now. And as I'm pulling up, like, I was very scared, and as I came into camp, like, this sense of relief came over me because it just felt sacred, and like it was a sacred place.
I was ill. I got motion sick because I can remember as a kid being in the car with my parents and my sisters, and we would take the back road up to camp, and it was like, oh, this is great. And the smell, the feel, it was just a new place, a special place.
My first impression pulling onto the property at Pilgrim Hills was just an immediate sense of peace. And I can say that continues to this day. It doesn't matter how many times I drive that drive and how many times I experience that arrival. There's something about turning that last corner and seeing the sign, driving down that tree-lined lane. There's just an overwhelming sense of peace, of relaxation. There are many times that I will actually stop the car and just sit for a minute and I'm here. It's a tangible sense of I'm in a different place. I'm in a different kind of space, and it's sacred. It's sacred space.
Pilgrim Hills, I was there multiple times every year.
It's a sacred space because we've had so many powerful experiences there.
The woods, big rocks, the cross, Cardiac Hill.
that they've had a moment on a path or here at the lake or at Vesper Hill.
And you could have been coming here for 15, 20, 30, 50 years.
And there's not many places that are this peaceful, this quiet. You get to find out who you are.
For some people, that's where they met the person that they married.
Camp was a very special place, and it helped form my belief in God and who I am today.
So for 11 years, I've been coming to Pilgrim Hills. All 11 years I've been here for sports camp.
Back in 1975, when I was coming out of the 7th grade.
2008, and then 4 years after that.
I think from 1979 to 1988.
I went for the very first time when I was 4 years old, and that was 1960. I was a counselor back in the 80s, and I did that for quite a few years, maybe almost 10 years.
My favorite section of the camp, I would have to say, is Vesper Hill, or any location on the back of the property that overlooks the valley to the cross at the bottom of the hill. It doesn't matter whether engulfed in sunlight or in shade, whether the trees are in bloom or whether it's middle of winter. Taking those steps out the deck and seeing the cross just appear over and down in the hillside, it's a moving experience for me. It's a coming home experience.
Well, my favorite place would be near the lake, because when we moved here, there was that crummy little shack was the only thing out in that whole area. There was nothing nearby of nothing cultured in any sense. And I started mowing this field. And the more I mowed it, the more the grass showed up. And all of a sudden we had a big lawn area with apple trees growing in it. Oh, this is kind of nice.
It has to be Spirit Lake, I would say. And it was our own playground. When our boys were young, we'd pack the bicycles up, and I mean, you can imagine riding around those roads there on bicycles and just having a lot of fun as a family. It was a great place to take a young family as we were growing.
The very point on the deck where you stand and you look out and you see the cross. There's something that is just very, very special and sacred about that space. I have stood in that spot in moments when there was no one else on the property, and I have stood in that spot when there have been 100 campers standing behind me laughing and talking, and it really doesn't matter. There's something for me about that space and that view that when I get into that space and I can see that view of the cross in front of me, the whole rest of the world just sort of melts away for a few minutes, and it is a sacred connection point for me. There's no question.
So back from you can remember when you first heard that Pilgrim Hills, they announced that it was closing. Mm-hmm. Where were you and what was your reaction?
Oh, gosh. I don't know that I can remember where I was. I think I must have read it on the computer in an email from the conference office.
I've heard rumblings about it, how I felt, sad, disappointed, but kind of knew something was going to happen because I have known, that there was financial problems going on.
I think I got it in an email here at the church. I just got a message from Mindy Quellhorse, who's the chair of the conference board, with information that the decision was made to close Pilgrim Hills.
I knew for some time that there had been struggles around the ability of the conference to maintain 2 camps. And when they had mothballed Temple Hills and Pilgrim Hills was continuing to stay open. Both camps have had a real beauty for me, and I've had profound experiences in both places. But knowing that Pilgrim Hills was not going to be available any longer made me kind of glad that I was retired, because I knew that having that as a resource in my active ministry, that was a place that I depended on as having that opportunity. So there was a deep sadness when I realized that that was not going to be available to others any longer.
Honestly, when I first heard the talk of it, I thought, okay, we've been talking about this for decades. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
The reason we had to put one of the camps on sabbatical was simply financial. We just had to come to terms with the fact that financially it was not viable to maintain both sites. The ministry wasn't sustainable given the financial concerns and constraints that were placed upon us, and so we needed to move the focus of the ministry to one site. At the time, when we honestly didn't have all of the research and didn't have all of the information, there were several people that came together and looked at several different factors and just decided that at that moment what made the most sense was to put Temple Hills on sabbatical and shift all of our programming over to Pilgrim Hills, because we needed to make a decision quickly for financial reasons. And then after that decision had been made and some of the financial constraints were eased a bit and we were able to revisit some of the information, then a committee was put together to look at several different factors, including property, what types of maintenance work would need to be done, location, marketability. Several factors went into the decision, and those people made the decision that Temple Hills was actually the more viable site for an ongoing future in the ministry, and that was when the decision was made then to sell Pilgrim Hills.
The board of directors realized that in order for the Ohio Conference and a church camp to be viable, we needed to get rid of one of them. We needed to sell, not get rid of, we needed to sell. And this board of directors decided that we can't push it down the road anymore, that in order to be a viable conference, we had to make a decision. And so a committee was put together to look at the pluses and the minuses of both camps. Then decide also what is the future of camp and the Ohio Conference. And so the decision was made to sell Pilgrim and move back to Temple. Not only because of money, that's a portion of it, but mostly for what it means to have faith formation in the United Church of Christ in Ohio. And what part of the demographics are we looking at? And so the decision was made with all of that. And it wasn't lightly. There was lots of tears, lots of discussion, lots of pain. But the board made decision based on the best knowledge that they had of all the research that had been done. Making the official announcement, it was good and bad. Many folks were very happy that a decision had been made. There was grief, obviously. There was some nastiness, but the overwhelming response was, thank you for making a decision. As the moderator, I needed to lead the board to make a decision. Personally, I was quite sad and in grief, but it is the right decision that was made. And I will do everything in my power to help move the Outdoor Ministries program and Faith Formation program to Temple Hills and make it successful.
Oh yeah, funky chicken.
This is a repeat after me song.
This is a repeat after me song.
That's it.
That's it.
The moose, the moose!
Yes, the moose, the moose!
Wading in the water.
Wading in the water.
Eating his supper.
Eating his supper.
Where did he go?
Where did he go?
The moose, the moose!
The moose, the moose!
Dead in the water.
Dead in the water.
Not eating his supper.
Not eating his supper.
Where did he go?
Where did he go?
He decomposed.
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 Good job.
Good job.
Hey, the buffalo.
Hi, I'm Lori Wick, and I'm the co-director of Floating with the Spirit Camp. Floating with the Spirit Camp is a camp for women, all ages, and we stay at Pilgrim Hills, and we go out on the river on Friday and Saturday morning, and we canoe down the river for about 6 to 8 hours. And it's just a time of quietness, reflection, fellowship, fun, and we eat lunch along the river, and then we come back and cook dinner. And we do it all again on Saturday. And it's been going on since year 2000. We canoe on the Mohican River. On Thursday, we usually start at the covered bridge, which is right off of 62 by camp. And we'll canoe downriver through Mohican State Park. And then on Saturday, we'll start up higher, up of the Mohican River, and we'll end at the covered bridge. And years ago, they used to do the Kokosing also. The Mohican's a much nicer ride for us. As we gotten older and stuff, that's a much nicer ride, so we like that a lot. And it's a beautiful river. The two women that started it, I think their reasoning was because there was nothing for women to do at camp, just women by themselves. So it was just a time for us to get away from our families, from our jobs, and enjoy the nature and the beauty of the river and Pilgrim Hills. The activities we do, besides going on the river, is we have worship. We kind of follow the curriculum that the camp is using for the summer camp, and my other co-director, Lisa, she'll do like crafts or prayer stations, and but we're on the river for about 6 to 8 hours, so by the time we get back, most people just want to rest. And then I've always been in charge of cooking the meal, so I'm the one that does the cooking, and then we have dinner and vespers around the fire. I think the response from the women is always positive. They always try to come. It would be good if it was set on the same weekend every year, because they can plan on it. But those that can't make it are always sad. They always send us a note and say, oh, we can't make it this year, hopefully next year. But the women, like I said, there's the two ladies, Margaret and Kathy, they've been going since it started. So, most people try to come every year. It's just what life, their schedules in their life, if they can or not, so.
So I'm Mindy Quellhorst, and I'm the current moderator of the Ohio Conference of the United Church of Christ in the wider church in Ohio, Northern Kentucky, and West Virginia.
My name is Samuel Buer. I go by Sam. I'm the pastor here at Sylvania United Church of Christ, the senior pastor, and I also have been serving for 5 years as the treasurer of the Ohio Conference.
As the moderator, I was called to help lead the conference into the future of what it means to be the church in Ohio, West Virginia, and Northern Kentucky.
My responsibilities as the treasurer they're manifold. The simple part is just keeping track of the bookwork and providing reports to the conference, to the board of directors. The recent years of all the camp issues that we've been going on, realizing that we could not continue the way what we were doing in the past was not affordable, and so I've been involved with a lot of financial decisions around the camping program.
The United Church of Christ was formed in 1957 from the Congregational Christian branches of the church and from the Evangelical Reformed Church. Evangelical Reformed Church came together in 1934, and the Congregational Christian Church came together in 1937, and together they worked and began to talk, and education and outdoor ministries, mission and justice were all main ideas of what it meant to be the church in all of those 4 branches of the church. So in 1957 in Cleveland, Ohio, the United Church of Christ was born. The Pilgrim Hills was owned by the Congregational Christian side of the church, and there was a good amount of Congregational Christian churches in the Ohio Conference. And the Temple Hills was owned by the Evangelical Reformed Church. And there was a good amount of Evangelical Reformed churches in Ohio. So because they were about equal in the amount of churches that were there, each branch of those churches before they became the United Church of Christ had their own camp. so happens they were only about 35, 40 minutes apart. So when the United Church of Christ came into being in 1957, neither wanted to get rid of their camp, and at that point in time, both were needed.
There were 12 guys who were looking at starting a camp and looking at different facilities. And there was 80 acres here, and they were the ones that said, this is where we want to have camp.
Dear Mr. Lyman, this purchase has been completed, the money paid, and the deed received and filed for the record. The deed has not yet returned by the county recorder, nor have we received the formal certificate of title from the Coshocton attorney. Congratulations on the property. Very truly yours, J. Hall Kellogg.
They purchased the camp back in '54, I believe. They started building buildings. Cabin 1 through 4 were the first ones. While they were building this, they built the lodge and the meeting house. And so the first summer camp that I know started in 1956.
The community was excited because it, was going to mean jobs for people, the farm women. It was a chance to finally have some, cash flow coming in. And of course, when we found out they were going to have a swimming pool, that part of the deal Dad made with getting the road in here was the kids of the township would be able to swim in the swimming pool on Saturday afternoons. And of course, none of us had ever seen a swimming pool before. I attended the dedication service here at the camp, and fortunately it was a beautiful day and was held outside, and everybody attended from all over the state of Ohio.
Pilgrim Hills is being dedicated to changing lives and the buildings of Christian faith and character. These hills and valleys will become hallowed ground by virtue of those who make new discoveries of God and His world, sitting right where you are sitting for Vesper services, for lectures and discussions. These hills and valleys will become as dearly familiar to hundreds of children, youth, and adults as the walls and chancels of our home sanctuaries. We will come here as strangers to one another, but in living together, singing together, eating and sleeping, we will be drawn close together quickly into a divine fellowship, which at times becomes the most intimate of significant relationships Christians have. Many a sharing of heart and soul will take place on these hillsides, under these trees, facing the sunset or the sunrise. Children go to scout camps, day camps, vacation church schools, but here, more than anywhere else, they will learn about God and His world in the same lesson, in the same experience.
The camp bought 80 acres, and then back in, I believe in 1964, there was 80 acres on top that was the road front of Township Road 9 or Township Road 20, and that was through the Strauss. In '64, they went up to like 160 acres. In probably the mid-'80s, there was a neighbor by the name of Phil Holtz who owned property over that way. He tried to sell the camp, his property, which was originally his mom, and so what he wanted to do was sell the property and then use that for, taxes to pay for his property. And so Phil ended up selling the property to a group of investors, blogging investors. So they came and bought it, came in and stripped all the trees, and about 6 months later, put that property, the 175 acres, up for auction. We bid on the property and we bought another 175 acres, which has Big Rocks and the big 65-acre tillable property. We bought that in '93. And I thought it was a little over $300 $6 an acre. And so that's where we're at now. We're about 372 acres for the camp total of our property.
When the property became available, people became concerned with the possibility of a gun club starting adjacent to the camp. And so the preservation of the character of the camp was very important. And it was important to buy the property to preserve that. It was not because we wanted the rocks. It really was preserve the privacy of the camp.
Way back in '91, when I first got here, we started a cabin up on the hill called Prettyman. And there was a church, the First Congregation of Akron, donated money for the start. There were supposed to be 2 cabins there. They donated $50,000 to start these cabins. And they wanted to dedicate this to a gentleman in their church by the name of Irv Prettyman. They did a dedication of Prettyman probably back in 94, 95. Before the cabin actually was even open and ready to go. The church wanted to dedicate just, Irv's name, Prettyman, to be a part of, the camp, since he had history of that.
When you guys came here for the first time on Sunday and thinking, oh, this is the last time I might be here, what were your thoughts?
I just really wanted to do everything I could to cherish it for the last time.
Yeah, we tried to make as many memories as we could, and yeah.
I kind of was a bit shocked and a bit worried because we're thinking of moving over to Temple Hills, and I've never been to Temple, and Pilgrim's really the only place I've ever known because this is like a second home to me. So it was pretty sad.
Yeah, I was really upset because all my friends are here, and this is where I've made a lot of memories, so I was definitely upset.
The place is great, yeah. And it's like everything's really familiar, and we absolutely love the atmosphere. But the people really, it's like a big family.
Yeah, I like the people, and I like the new experiences that you get to encounter throughout the week.
Yeah, I want to come here in 20 years and just still see all this, and I know I won't, so it's pretty sad. But hopefully some new people will buy it and make some good memories too.
So my name is Bobby Burt, and I am the chair of the Division of Outdoor Ministries, and I am a director of Mad Camp. Mad Camp is a camp of fine arts. It stands for music, mime, art, drama, and dance. And for a week every summer, the kids come together. They learn dances to Christian worship songs. They make different art projects, work on drama classes, improv skills. And then they also do some found sound music classes. A week of Mad Camp is different every year. We never do the same things. Some years we'll do square dances. This year they made these robots out of cardboard, and they made totem poles. And this year we focused a lot on improv as well. All of our kids come with varied talents. Some of them are actors, some of them are singers, some of them are dancers. So we have lots of different skills and talents that come with our kids, and we just really want to showcase them and make them understand how much we love and appreciate them for who they are and what they do. From what's been explained to me, Mad Camp was started in the 70s when they wanted to have a fine arts camp, and they started with 2. They had choir camp as well as Mad Camp, and it actually started at Pilgrim Hills, and then a few years later they wanted a fine arts camp at both sites, not both at one, and they moved it over to Temple, and it had been at Temple until 4 years ago when it went on sabbatical, and then we moved here. We try to make sure that every year is new and every year is exciting, and we definitely learn every year from the things that our campers say, because one year we got a ton of people who were like, we hated Predator Prey, so last year we didn't do it. And then we got scolded by everyone, why aren't we playing Predator Prey? And we were like, you hated it. And they're like, but we want it back. Oh, okay. So we learn from the evaluations. They're mostly positive. You always get that like negative feedback of things they want to see change. We try to take that into account and do it differently for them. So it's life, yeah?
I'm going to ask anyways, how many of you have had a bad time this week?
Brownie, thanks! Just lost all my concentration. Hey, everybody pay attention to her! Get your face up!
How's it feel, Miguel? Oh, I'm cool.
I'm cool. Just
I think that church camping, wherever it is, being in the woods, it has to do with knowing God in a place and being accepted. When I was pastor in Wisconsin, I had a young boy from my congregation that went with me as I was directing the church camp, and this poor lad was troubled beyond belief. His parents had gotten divorced. He was struggling in life in general and just really was having a hard time. So I convinced him to come to church camp. And he tried everything he could do to cause problems. But by the end of the week, that kid was making his bed. He had made friends. He wasn't angry anymore. It's the unconditional love of God that comes when you open yourself up to feel God's presence in a place that the world doesn't quite touch. I think the difference between that and Boy Scout, Girl Scout, 4-H, all those kind of camps is in church camp, you have fun, but you don't do the hijinks of hurting other people. I think some of those other camping experiences, because I've been at those as well, you do more, not that you're hurting on purpose, but you do the teasing in more of a negative way. And I think being open to God's Spirit in a place that's not home gives you a new understanding of who God is.
The very first time that two of my sons went to camp, they had never had the experience before, and they're very, very much on their phones and computers and TV and all that. And so I was really curious how that they would handle that. And so when I picked them up a week later, I said, "How was camp?" They said, "Well, wonderful." I said, "Would you go back again?" They said, "In a heartbeat." I said, "Did you miss the computer or the TV?" And they said, "Not at all." Something just happens when you're in that environment. You're away from all the technology and things that are pulling you off in other directions, and there's this, I don't know how to explain it. It's hard to explain unless you've sort of been there and soaked in that atmosphere. Pilgrim Hills is one of those thin places where you just feel closer to God. And that was certainly my experience, and I think for anyone that I've ever talked to that has spent time at the camp, that has been their experience. So I think outdoor ministries is a really important ministry to offer for those reasons.
I think camps are closing at an alarming rate just because of the reality of the difficulty in sustaining the infrastructure and maintenance and staffing. It takes a lot to keep a camp like this running and running well. There's just a lot of logistics. There's a lot of logistics with insurance and safety. Certainly, anytime you have a facility like this, it has to be safe. It has to be an environment that meets all kinds of standards. And that's a difficult thing to do. It's a difficult thing to maintain, and it takes money. It takes people who are willing to support the place, support the program, support the people that maintain it. It takes people with a passion for keeping camps going and being willing to make the donations both of their time and of their money to to make it continue.
My understanding of the difference between people's desire for camping and church camps closing has more to do with the variety of types of camp experiences that are now available. I think in terms of specific baseball camps, soccer camps, when I was a child, there weren't as many choices of kinds of camps. At least in my experience, it was more church camps that were available.
So what you're saying is that kids, like either boys or girls, would rather go to a baseball camp or football camp in the summer instead of going to a nature camp or church camp for the summer. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's possible. And I think the reason in terms of specific camps is probably related to other things that they're doing in their lives. You know, where you're on the team and they say, well, the way to be really successful on the team is to go to this soccer camp. And so, and their friends are doing it, and that's what motivates them to do it.
Yeah, will parents and society quit coming to camp because they're too busy? For me, that's an excuse. That we use that reason is one reason to say folks aren't coming. Again, that's not the case. As we look broadly across the industry, people are going to camp, and they're going to camps that work, but they're prioritizing, and they're prioritizing their time and their money to be a part of that. So, no, I don't think that camps will decline simply because folks are too busy. Our society actually is getting reconnected to the outdoors in ways that we've not been. Stores are opening significantly because people are buying outdoor gear because they want to have outdoor experiences. I don't think there's a busyness issue that necessarily keeps us from going to camp or an interest issue. I think the market's still there, actually. When you look at a mainline denomination, there are less people in those churches than there were 10, 20 years ago. The people that are left are also getting older. So when we think about the market base in those mainline camps, there are less people in the churches, the folks are getting older, but we continue to market to the same amount of people or the same group of people. But we also haven't cared for the properties very well in a lot of cases. When we go to reach out and invite new folks to come, they look and say, wow, these places are not in very good shape. And so it's hard to sell, if you will, the experience to that next generation of parents when the places haven't been cared for very well. As we think about organizations like the American Camp Association or the Christian Camp and Conference Association, they continue to show an increase in the number of campers. I think that'll continue. In terms of what's going on with mainline denominational camps, the number of camps that are closing is slowing. And therefore, I think there can be some health, actually, for particular camps and particular judicatories and mainline faith-based organizations. The camps that are successful are the ones that say to parents, if you send your child to our camp and they come to our experience, we will give them these 3 things, whatever they are. But the camps that can name their outcomes and then actually deliver those outcomes are successful. And so the formula is very simple, but camps don't always do it well. We get confused with what our purpose is, and then we lose focus. So I don't think the formula is tough. I think for many, the execution is tough.
My name is Tom Hart, and I am a co-director for Sports Camp.
My name is Renee Neron, and I'm the co-director of Sports Camp.
It's a Christian-based camp that focuses on sports. The unique thing, though, is that not many of our campers are professed athletes. They just enjoy playing the game. It's more about sportsmanship and having fun than there is competition.
What we normally do at Sports Camp would be wake up, eat breakfast. We do morning walking or jogging if you really want to get up early at 6:15 in the morning, which I never choose to do. Then we go into family challenges where you compete as a family group. You compete in lacrosse, soccer, volleyball, and softball, and also can jam and gaga ball. Just playing games mainly all day, and then we end with a worship service at night, which we call Vespers. and it's probably one of the best times of the day.
I feel that there are so many kids here at sports camp because we have built a tradition where our younger kids are able to see what the older kids do, and they are excited to want to take part in that and come back and experience that when they get older. We've found that there is no real discrepancy between the ages. I'm not positive, but I think in a lot of other camps, the meals are shared with just the camps themselves. Like if there's a grandparent-grandchild camp, they'll sit together. In sports camp, we have technically four camps here: primary, intermediate, junior high, and senior high. And we encourage them to intermingle.
The overall history, I know sports camp started in 1974. Jeff Steinhelfer established sports camp here, and it was based on the Olympic theme, and they would prepare all week for the Olympics at the end of the week, and they would make medals and have the podium and things like that. We've gotten away from that in current day sports camp. We have had Olympic events and things like that before, but now it's gone to a lot of just playing team sports, working more on the student sportsmanship, and just building the relationships.
With the money that the kids pay to come to camp, we provide them with quality equipment. So the soccer balls are what they would find on a high school soccer team. When the equipment has started to show some wear and tear, we'll leave it here for the other camps to use. We do evaluations with our counseling staff above and beyond what the camp requires. While it's still fresh in our mind, we itemize what worked well this year, what didn't work well, what can we change.
And if a kid, is having a hard time, we can kind of see that a lot of times and step in and just build on those relationships that we've had the entire, week at camp here too.
Extra busy. Does it look like I'm busy?
All right, I'm Jeff Thompson. I am the site manager here at Pilgrim Hills. I've been here for 27 years. I tell people that you're responsible for everything, where we're responsible for making sure the site is ready to go, make sure the facilities are clean, well kept, also responsible to make sure the groups are happy, well fed. And I tell people we do everything from cleaning toilets to fixing plumbing to doing dishes. And I have done them all and do them all. So that's what we've done here. I grew up camping. I grew up years, started when I was in junior high at a farm, a horse farm, and spent my college years in the Methodist camps for probably 6 years. Then we got married and worked at another Methodist church camp. And it's just, this is my ministry. I love every day getting up and doing something different. I could not be in an office or a factory doing everything the same thing every day. This is what I enjoy. Now, some days are a lot longer than others, but I just enjoy hosting and meeting people, and this is my life. It's always an interesting when people, especially summer people, come down to camp and say, well, I've been here for 20 years. This is my 20th summer here. And then you figure out, okay, so you're here for a week, and so that's 20 weeks. And so that is actually like 3 months, you've been here. We have lived here since we started March 15th of 1991, and we've lived here on site ever since. We lived in the mobile home, and then we moved over to the house. Work is not an 8-hour a day. You live here, and this is, even on days off, you always have strange people come in and say, we were just wondering what a pilgrim was. And so we had people just come in, drive in, turn around and leave. Some people ask, some people say, oh, we were here 50 years. But you always have to address people. And so you're always on call 24/7, all the time at camp. We've had some just really incredible, I call them kids and still call them kids, but some incredible staff over the years. We still keep in contact with a lot of them, and it's been fun. The young lifeguards we have now, call us family, and that's what you are. I always tell people that, you don't pick your family, you don't pick your staff, but you have to live with them. The thing that I have enjoyed the most is the staff. There's just a lot of people that have been here who probably are people that you would never even think should be at a church camp. And there's been some neat staff who are no longer here, who have passed on. My biggest memory are a lot of the staff and just the hard work, but also seeing kids grow up. There was a gentleman who was very young here. I think they said he's 38 years old now, and he was, very young. And it's like, I feel old. But that is the neat part of seeing new staff come, and then, in August when everybody leaves, you go, it's good to get everybody gone. But it's also good to just have the memories, and the staff really have been what kept us going.
What else do you like about camp?
Camp? Well, I like arts and crafts. I like to do things with my hands.
Yeah. You like painting?
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
I do. And the other best part is I love to eat.
You love to eat, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. You like the meals they serve here?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Every time they serve salad bars, meatloaf, mashed potatoes, everything deluxe.
Yep. Do you like going on hikes to the lake?
Oh, yes, brother.
Yep.
Oh, yes. Because they're constantly every day.
What do we do on the lake?
Oh, you're talking about Spirit Lake. Yeah, if you go there, you go paddle boating and on the lake. I like that.
Yes.
And we also have our s'mores covered with graham crackers.
With graham crackers. Yeah.
More
food.
And wait a minute. We love the movie of the week.
Yep. What is the movie of the week?
Titled Pilgrim Hills Camp, Scene 1.
Yep.
Well, next time you stop at Frank Cayman, just come and see me, and I'll introduce you to my mom.
Yep. All right. Sounds good.
My name is Megan. I'm the co-director of Circle of Friends Camp. Circle of Friends is more of a general camp. We still do all the traditional camping stuff, but it doesn't really have a theme. Like, it's not like sports or choir, so it's more focused on building friendships and all the regular camping activities. We do normal camping activities that you'd see at any camp. We go swimming, we do archery, hikes. We like making friendship bracelets and stuff like that. Circle of Friends started about 10 years ago. I was one of the first campers when it first started. There were about 8 of us that year, so we have grown year by year, and then I was a camper for 5 years, and then I counseled for 4 years of those years, and now I'm directing. We stuck with some of the traditions that we started. Like we've always done, like everyone picks a name. They get a camper's name each day, and then at the end of the day, they write notes to them about different things they've learned about them, or if they've returned again this year, they're like, oh, I'm glad I can see you again, or we're here again together. Then the crafts, we kind of try to make our own crafts too, like kind of come up with the crafts that we do. So this year we did wind chimes. We made wind chimes with like silverware and beads, and it was kind of cool. And then they made like a blessing box where they painted a box so they could keep different notes, their notes in there as well. So the response from the campers about Circle Friends, I think it's typically a good response. We usually have a lot of returners that come back, so I would take that as a good sign of they enjoyed the week. I wanted to co-direct Circle of Friends to keep the traditions going and to allow other campers to experience the same things that I experienced. With this being my first year as a director, there was a lot of challenges that have gone along with it, but we've definitely gone through them, and I think I definitely would like to direct next year or help with the camp in some way.
I've got the perfect song to sing during that. I call paddling the boat. Everybody paddles. Okay, all three of us paddle.
So mint really likes places that people like.
Can we eat them?
We can eat it, but we're going to chew on it. So I'm going to teach you how to identify it. So when you look down from the top, see how it looks like a plus sign? Because some of the leaves are like this, yep, and some of the leaves are like that. When you look at it from the side, every other leaf is turned in that plus sign. It's not a spiral, right? And they're not all the same like a ladder. It's every other one.
I'm going to stay here and eat these.
Oh, we're going to chew on them and spit them out. We're not going to eat them because we're going to lunch. So the next thing about every plant in the mint family is the stem. So I want you to hold the stem between your fingers and kind of turn it a little bit, like roll it. What shape is that?
It's like,
Is that a normal plant shape?
No,
Not at all. What is that?
kind of like a star. Is it like
It's
where
got corners,
like
yeah.
Is it where like it's shaped and it has like kind of like corn?
It has corners. Well, let's just look at it. What shape is that? Where all four sides are the same.
Cube.
Or a square, yeah. All right. So, take one off.
Smell like mint?
Nope, not yet. Crush it up. Smell it. I'm going to say the word smells strongly of mint. Like, wow, that has to be mint, right? Smell it. Then you ask an adult that works at camp. So you look at one of the adults that works at camp and you say, hey, Mr. Jesse, is this mint?
Yes.
No, you ask me.
Oh, hey, is this mint? Is this mint?
Yes.
So we can eat it?
You can chew it up like gum.
Does it taste good?
Tastes like mint.
Ew.
I know.
That doesn't taste like good mint.
I know. It's really strong, right? Yeah, that's why we don't eat it. That makes my tummy hurt. Pick some to put in our water at lunch. I think that's a great idea. So here's how we're going to pick it because we don't want to pull it out of the ground.
I can actually tell you exactly where I was sitting the very first night of Vespers when I was a 7th grader, which was here at Vesper Hill. I've remembered it for so long. I can remember the director. I can remember some of what he was going to talk about and present for that week.
There's one that came to mind as I was walking up to Spirit Lake today. And when I was a junior in high school, some of us came up here at night and just looked at the stars and looked at the moon, and it was bright and it was just shining on the lake. I mean, it was just this moment we all shared and we loved it, and it was peaceful. It's the feel of it that's important to me.
Part of our work at confirmation camp was we asked or encouraged or basically set up a program where any of the youth that came, we asked them to donate 2 hours of their week at camp to do some sort of a project, and we tried to make it fun. One year, the director that was at camp was not prepared, and he sent us out to pull weeds. Not a good thing because he put us out in poison ivy. And I went, okay, when a bunch of our kids went home with poison ivy that year, I said, that's never going to happen again. And so since that time, we've been doing more worker building projects. And at that time, the camps were not very handicap accessible, but there were no decks on any of the buildings. And so we started adding decks where a whole cabin of 20 some people could sit on. And those were built by then the confirmation camp. We would design them, bring in some volunteers, and then the kids would spend time nailing or hauling lumber around. And it got to the point we decided to start writing their names on the decks, and that became a big thing. They really looked forward to that. And they'd come back years later and show their siblings or sometimes their kids where their picture or where their name was on the deck.
I can remember being there at Prettyman Cabin with groups over the years and taking adult groups there and having a chance to do retreats together, being in silence and walking through the woods there and having that wonderful experience of God's presence, just being out there in nature. The woods there were always a sacred place for me. I loved to walk the trails. I loved to be out in the midst of nature. And I remember one night I went out on a night hike and the kids went on ahead and I just sat there by myself for a little bit on a log, and I was surrounded. I knew there were animals watching me. I could sense the presence there, and it had just a mystical feel, just being there in the darkness in the midst of nature and feeling totally safe.
Well, I brought just a couple things, and this is a picture of, it's a postcard actually, of Cabins 910 at Pilgrim Hills, and this hung on the kitchen wall in my parents' house for years. And it was a cabin that all of us had been in at some point or another. And then I just brought this. This has, as I was going through papers from my mother, this is the very old, very yellow, actually roster of people who were there in 1960 at family camp. But it was really exciting to stumble on that and to see our names on there. And I also found just pictures. There's unfortunately not a picture of my family, but these are the two families that shared the cabin with us at family camp. So I stuck these things in here just to kind of keep them safe. And then there are a few other articles and things about the camp that I discovered in the box of treasures. It was fun to go through the box.
Hi, my name is Aaron Miner, and I'm the co-director of Choir Camp.
Hi, my name is Lori Betts, and I'm one of the co-directors of Choir Camp.
Choir Camp, it is an amazing week of camp. It brings 1st through 12th graders from around Ohio, not only to sing, but also to learn about themselves, about their faith, about teamwork, and we do more than just singing at Choir Camp. We build fires, we cook our own meals, and we do a lot of activities bridging the divide of creation and teamwork.
I think the focus is Choir Camp because that's one thing we all have in common. We love to sing, we love music, but it's about making friendships, learning about your faith, and having fun, doing, getting into the lake. This is a place we take the kids a lot to have different activities. So it's a camping experience, it's a full thing.
Our counselors don't have to come, neither do our campers, have to come in with any sort of musical knowledge beforehand, just as long as they enjoy singing and are ready to have a great week and a fun week.
They love it. We've had some of the same kids for, like right now, one little girl, I think this is her 8th summer. Most of our counselors were campers and then they've become counselors. But I'd say all in all, it's a positive experience for, I'd say, almost everybody.
The response we get year after year from our campers is that this is a special place, somewhere that they feel safe, somewhere that they have been able to grow within themselves, within their faith, and musically as well. And year after year, we learn from what our campers say didn't maybe work that year, but we've always been really excited that we put our all on the table so that our campers have a great experience.
And remember that each of you brings something special to this world. And there is a community here who loves you. So thank you. Shout glory, exclamation point, every day. And we will see all of you next year in some form or another. Travel safely. Whatever. Amen.
It's been a week.
Amen. And did you have like special praying and not crying?
When all the camps move to Temple Hills, I do think that the move is going to be successful. Even though this campground is really special to us, the camp is more special. So if I met all these people in my backyard and we had camp, it would be just as awesome if we had it here, although we would definitely miss this site. I think that we want camp to be just as great at Temple Hills, so we're going to work hard and work together to make sure that that place is awesome and ready for us to go next year.
You know, in terms of what's going to happen at Pilgrim Hills in the future, I think that remains to be seen. I'm hoping somebody has some vision as to what that might mean as a place for outdoor activity. I'm concerned that it may just end up being torn down and turned into farmland or turned into, you know, something other than what it had really been utilized for. But perhaps, you know, you never know. God works in mysterious ways. There may be opportunities for something in the future to end up in there, and we can hope and pray.
I think the move from Pilgrim to Temple will work. It will not be easy because the facilities at Temple Hills are not equal to Pilgrim. Now, eventually they will be, or equal and if not better. I'm personally committed to doing my very best to make it work, and I want it to work for the sake of the camps, because I think it's just very, very important.
One of the things that has been very clear over the last couple of years is that the people of the Ohio Conference are absolutely committed to the Outdoor Ministries program. It continues to be both a vital and very viable ministry, and it's a passion for people in the Ohio Conference. With everything that has transpired over the last several years, there's a clear indication that for at least a significant portion of the Ohio Conference, this is a ministry that people are not going to let die, and it will continue, and it will continue in a way that supports the faith exploration and faith formation of our members. Do we have work to do? Absolutely. Do we need a lot of volunteers to make it happen? Absolutely. But the heart and the passion of the people of the Ohio Conference is clear when it comes to outdoor ministries, and there's no question in my mind the transition is going to be a very successful one.
I really can't say for sure what's going to happen to the camp. I would like it to continue offering up sacred experiences for, if it's not the UCC, then for another church is looking for a place to meet. If that's not the case, I know that the memories and the events that I've shared here will always be written on my heart, and that can't be taken away.
Did you guys hear, or back in August or this past summer, that they might reverse their decision? Were you guys part of, like, there was like some type of maybe petition going around? Did you guys happen to know anything about that, or?
No, just the email I got.
From the conference?
Mm-hmm. Well, from Sandy.
What did it say?
There were some things that had come up that made it better to put the money into Pilgrim Hills than into Temple.
Do you remember, like, any specific things that was said?
Something about the pool and some problems with mold at Temple Hills.
Apparently, there were rumors spread throughout, I think, like the last week we were about to leave, that there was a mold infestation at Temple Hills. Would you like to share anything you know about that?
A mold infestation at Temple Hills. There's mold at both camps because it's an outdoor facilities and it's wet. Because Temple had been closed up, there was some more mold than previous years. It was being cleaned and dealt with, and and it's good to go. It is an outside facility where it is damp, where mold grows. And so.
But it was dealt with.
It was dealt with, yes. It was dealt with. Air quality people have come in and tested the air, and it is fine. There were a group of people who came and did some more research and thought that there was new information to be shared that the board had not looked at.
I was angry. I could not imagine a good reason for this to happen. The reason why is that I went to the statement that people from the board of directors made, which said that they were going to close Pilgrim Hills because the sewage system was not adequate. We could not add a single bed or a single other toilet without having to redo the whole system, and that the swimming pool was leaking and would need to be replaced. And they put dollar amounts on those that were excessive. One of our members, and my husband, called the EPA and found out that the sewage system is adequate, and in fact is adequate for 70 more beds than Pilgrim Hills already has, which is around 200 beds. So that was false.
Well, I retired from the regional sewer district here in Cleveland, so I knew sewers a little bit. So I talked to a very nice lady at the EPA and had her pull the file on Pilgrim Hills, which dated all the way back to 56, when designs were made for the sewer system there at camp. And originally, it was going to be a dual system for both sides of the camp. Then in 57, they changed that design, and they went with a single dual filter bed system there that could handle, I think it was 36,000 gallons a day that it was designed for, which was 270 beds. Pilgrim's currently at 200 beds.
The swimming pool was also misleading. The swimming pool had leaks in it 2 years ago, but 2016, the leaks were repaired. The pool is adequate, and one of the complaints had been that the water was always cold because they were constantly refilling it. Well, when the leaks are plugged, then the water stays warm because you're not constantly filling it with cold water. Pilgrim Hills has a number of handicap accessible buildings already, and I'm sure that the plan was to continue to update buildings so that they would all be handicap accessible. And the other camp had none, no accessible buildings.
So I've not found it true that Temple Hills is not handicap accessible. There's things that could be improvable. Our main living area is Memorial, which has an entry level on both the first and the second floors, so there's ramps and there's ways to do that. I remember that there's a bathroom with a larger door, so it's wheelchair accessible and grab bars. I do remember that. The road is pretty level to Skipper Lodge, so you don't have to do stairs. If you were sleeping downstairs, you would either go outside or you might not be assigned to Skipper.
It just didn't make sense to me the more I was involved and got into it. To try and bring Temple Hills back just seemed like a waste of money, like throwing money away when you already had conditions at Pilgrim that were in good, usable condition.
So it just didn't make sense for them to use Temple Hills as the one to keep and to sell Pilgrim Hills. In addition, Pilgrim Hills has many amenities that Temple doesn't. It has a 3-acre lake. It has a number of athletic fields which are used by not only sports camp, but other camps as well. It's part of creating a rich camping experience to have those amenities. Temple Hills has one field. So there were many reasons that we believed that Pilgrim Hills was a better choice to keep, to provide the richest camping experience.
With working with the executive committee and the conference minister, we decided to have them bring it to the board and we would relook at the decision. Now, along with that, once we said that, I had many emails saying, why are you doing this? Why are you opening up again? The decision was made, follow through on it. But the executive committee felt it was important to let the new petition be heard.
I went to the meeting, and myself and a number of other people gave a presentation to the board of directors. And I believe that we provided a lot of facts that should have changed minds. We gave a presentation to the board of directors, and although they listened politely, I felt like that what we said didn't matter, that their minds had already been made up.
So we went into that meeting with a nice presentation, and we were given 1 hour, and then the whole meeting was opened up for question and answers. And unfortunately, our time was dominated partly by the treasurer for the board of directors, where some question was asked about finances within the camps, and he spent 10 minutes or more going over information, where I'm sitting there listening to this thinking we're supposed to be answering questions that people here might have specifically geared towards the camps. That didn't happen.
And then when the vote was to be taken, there was dead silence. No one was even going to make a motion to consider the proposal that we had made. And then finally someone said, well, all right, I'll make the motion just so we can get it on the table. And 2 people voted for the motion, which was gratifying, but everyone else kept their hands down. They wouldn't vote. So that just told me that the decision had been made long before we arrived.
The petitioners brought forth their information. They had sent it out. We sent out all the information that we had, that they had sent us, to the board of directors, and they read it and discussed it. And at the meeting, we talked about it again and listened to the petitioners and let the spirit work. And the board decided to stay with the decision that they had made earlier.
Was it because of the same reasons why? Or was it
Yes. No, I think it was because of the same reasons. Having the conversation of the second meeting of the board, many folks said, we trust the board to make the decision. You should have stuck, you didn't need to talk about it again. The executive committee felt like we did need to talk about it again, but there wasn't any backlash that I take that back. I got one email basically saying you'd made the decision before you even went in. And my response to that is no, we let the spirit work. No decisions were made, the people's minds were open, and we let the spirit work.
This place is so special to me because it is. I cannot put my finger on one thing. I do know that no matter where sports camp is, it will be a success. We will still have our sports. We will still have our games, our vespers, our singing. And I think maybe for me it's so special because my relationship with God started here.
Well, when I was in 7th grade, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And that's been an ongoing thing for me. So this past year I had my 2nd brain surgery, and in 1 month I'll have my 3rd brain surgery. This place is just somewhere that my family and I have come to really seek answers and to get support. And when I come here, I feel like all of those burdens have really been lifted from me, and I'm removed from everything when I come here. I don't have to think about when I go to the doctor or the fact that I have to have this challenge with the brain tumor. And in the real world, those are things that are hard to forget. But when I'm here, I'm surrounded by nature, I'm surrounded by all my friends, and it's something that I don't have to think about, and I have all the memories of the people who have been in my life that have supported me here, and all of the things that we have done, like walking this labyrinth where I've just really found peace with myself and with things that go on in this world.
It's my place to be. It's my sanctuary. When I go to camp, everybody knows. It's like, I can't wait to get there. I tell the people at church I'm going to camp, and they said they're excited for me because I know I enjoy it so much. It's the beauty, it's the peacefulness, it's the people that work there that put their heart and soul into that place. And I just enjoy being there, whether it's for a couple hours or for 3 or 4 days. It's just a place I'd go every day if I could.
I got my first kiss there. I made friends. I got my call to go into ordained ministry. That doesn't mean that that's the only place that those things happen. Yes, it's a thin and special place for me, and when we did the decommissioning in October for that, it was sad, but it's time to move on. The church, the world is not the same place it was 40 years ago, even 20 years ago. So we need to offer opportunities for faith formation for thin places in any place that we can. The decommissioning was a time of joy and a time of sadness. It was a time of seeing old friends and making some new friends. It was a time of moving some of the important memories and some of the important things to the next step in where God is leading us. At the annual gathering on September 15th and 16th, 2017, the treasurer brought to myself and to Kathy Green at that point and John Gant that there had been a bid. And we had a board meeting right after the annual gathering where Kathy had that information, and the board made the decision at that point to look at the bid and to accept it.
But it was, they made an offer to the camp that, to us as the board, that was significantly above the appraised value. And it was in the range of where the auctioneers said you might be lucky to get. And since it was in that range, it was like, okay, now what do we do? And so we made a counter offer and came to an agreement at that point.
The people that bought it, the Tiverton Tree Company, they're neighbors. They own the property next door to us. The three guys, owners, came over, and they've never seen the site, so they walked around and just looked at what was here. And I asked them, I said, what are you thinking of doing for the camp? And they said, well, we have just a lot of ideas. We're moving. We sold it. And I don't want to say, am I concerned? No, because we gave up the right to be concerned with the property. So somebody asked me today about, if I would be concerned or still be in contact with people here about what's going on with camp. And we're moving on. My focus is Temple, and memories are at Pilgrim Hills, and whatever the new owners would like to do with the camp, that's their choice. And they have been good neighbors. I think they will treat the property well.
I believe passionately in the benefit of an outdoor ministries program. I believe that the benefit that it offers, not just to the youth who experience a summer camp program, but to the members of all of our churches who can come for retreats and who can support the program in many, many ways. I think the ministry that is done from an outdoor ministries perspective is ministry that impacts us all in ways that we can't even begin to fathom. And that's important work that is done, and it's important ministry that is offered. And I hope that the Ohio Conference continues to ignite the passion that comes from an outdoor ministries program and continues to support that well into the future. It will serve us well.
It's painful when camps close. It's really painful, and it's painful because it's holy ground. But I say to folks, the property and the facilities aren't the ministry. They're just tools. And so the power of the ministry can happen anywhere. So for this conference, as it thinks about going to a different property, and that's painful, and losing this property, but the power of camp can still happen. And for me, that's the encouraging part of where you all are, is that the experience can happen somewhere else. And therefore, the powerful memory of Pilgrim Hills stays alive because the camp work stays alive. And that's what ultimately has to happen.
Kind of, to be honest with you, I think wherever we end up will be successful. And so, it is one of those things that it's all attitude, and it's a change for us, but change is good. Maybe we got a little, complacent here with knowing where everything's at. Now we learn a new system and figure out where everything's at, and I think it will be an interesting adventure. When you're at a place for 27 years where you've lived here, this is the longest, I've ever lived in a place. Our son was born here, it's just a lot of memories, and, you're just changing venues, I guess, and you're moving on. Is it sad? Yeah, but we have the memories, and then you just have to move on and have new memories.